making you gay.
Let me tell you honestly what I felt listening to the Okuji yesterday, in chronological order and in the order of the songs. However, this is completely my own personal impression. I may say things that you may not be pleased with. Moreover, I dare to use definitive expressions below. This is because I want to simplify the text. In fact, I should use I think, I guess, I believe, personally, etc., but I would be happy if you would supplement them and read it. Also, if you do not need to prepare for such prior knowledge and want to listen to BAND-MAID's performance with an open mind, please do not read what I am about to write. Thank you very much. First, I must say where my seat was. I chose SS seats because I made it my top priority to win the lottery. Actually, I wanted to be in the back of the first floor near the mixer seats because I wanted to hear the sound first and most importantly, but that was not possible because the SS seats were from the very front row to the second row, a total of 60 seats. So I decided to be happy to see the maids up close and put a lid on my true desire to put sound first. And having read reports of the past 3 Okujis on Twitter, I have heard many people say that they could not hear Konami very well, so I thought it would be better to be right in front of her. However, when I entered the venue and looked at the stage, I realized that I could hardly see Misa if I was seated right in front of Konami. Moreover, Akane's bass drum was so forceful that it would create a sound barrier and make it difficult to hear the sound beyond it. I ended up in the second row from the front, where I could see Misa and be close to Konami. In other words, right in front of Psyche. My entry number was 26, but by the time I entered, all the seats on the Konami side in the middle of the first row were already occupied, and most of the seats in the second row were also occupied, so I had to choose a better seat among them. Now I'll spare you the rest of what happened after that until the show started. When the stage went dark, the music for their entrance was different and more subdued than before. The maid waltz was also different. The order of entrance was Misa, Konami, Miku, and Akane, which was also different from the past. Finally, Psyche quietly entered and took her place, and the intro to Sense began, as in previous Okuji. As the first verse began, I found the balance of the maid sound for the first time. As I had expected, the sound balance was not so good. Psyche's voice sounded louder, and her voice was slightly cracked. The next loudest part was, as expected, Konami's backing. Misa and Miku sounded audible, but inarticulate and unable to grasp the sound pattern. Akane's sound was smaller than expected, and the bass drum did not sound as tight and solid. As I had expected, I realized once again that I should not expect an ideal acoustic balance in this place. For a while after that, I was battling with my own inner conflicts. Anyway, the balance was not good, and I could not grasp a solid core of sound due to the large bass reverberation and poor separation, as well as the mixture of the sound through the PA and the live sound. A few songs went by with a fuzzy sound and a foggy state of mind. I think the performance was wonderful. I didn't feel any mistakes at all, and there is no doubt that it was a passionate performance. However, it is very difficult to give an objective evaluation of how great it was, given the poor sound separation. Based on the description of Part 1, the following is a description of the performance of each piece. Sense was by far the most suitable song for live performance, just as I felt during the Summer Sonic streaming. Psyche's singing was overwhelming. I was really impressed with the pitch and rhythm, which were accurate as usual, while still maintaining a tremendous amount of spirit. In a word, persuasive. Konami's solo was also full of spirit, but due to poor sound separation, that was all that came through. I was really disappointed that I could not hear Misa's genius transition from the guitar solo to the third verse at all. I was also disappointed that I can only imagine that Akane's tom twirling in the second verse and her subsequent activities must have been wonderful because I could not grasp the core of the sound due to the poor sound separation. The same state of affairs continues in the fourth song, Freedom. I found myself in the difficult situation of trying to improve this state somehow while also concentrating on their performance. The performance was the same as usual with this song, and all the members were really playing with sincere smiles on their faces and sprinkling a joyful atmosphere. To use an abstract expression, it was not a gorgeous performance, but rather a solid, tight performance that was well put together. As I mentioned before, during the first verse, Konami pulled Akane's hair from behind and forced her to bend her face backwards. And during Miku's vocal in the second verse, Konami also sat in front of Miku and looked into her face. I couldn't tell because Konami had her back to the audience, but she may have been making silly faces to annoy Miku. I was listening to the music with the equalizer in my head, turning off the reverb and reducing the bass, so I honestly couldn't concentrate on the music and the performance perfectly. I was more than happy to hear Akane's drum solo and Konami's guitar solo, which she played by standing on the platform in front of me and showing affection to the audience. However, their solos also had poor sound separation, so I could only get about half of what they were doing. Akane's solo in particular was more elaborately composed than the LCS's, and the odd time signature in the middle of the solo caused me to lose sight of the rhythm and become stunned. I am keenly interested in hearing it again. By the way, Konami's solo was the same phrase as usual. Psyche's singing was also overwhelmingly present here, and even after all this time, I still keenly felt how wonderful she is. Oh, and the second song, Afterlife, as you can see, is another song that really shines live. And it was a very hot performance that, like Screaming used to do, did a fine job of setting the audience's heart on fire. The third song, Play, was as lively as usual and as passionate as usual. I thought that bringing this to the third song was meant to add more wood to the fire that was lit in the hearts of the audience during Afterlife. And the fifth song, in Osaka, Nagoya, and Sendai, Unleash. So I was only paying attention to Psyche and was surprised to hear Akane's drum and Misa's bass from the other direction. Yes? Dice. Nevertheless, this song had slightly fewer notes than the previous one, which was good news for my ears, which had been suffering from poor sound separation until then. Perhaps this is why I found this performance to be exceptionally better than any other performance of this song I have heard. The good contrast with the previous four songs must have also had an effect. As usual, I would have liked to hear Misa and Konami's solos a little longer though. Here is the first MC by Miku. When Miku said, "Welcome back, Masters and Princesses," and it's been about 5 years since we played at DiverCity, Psyche said, "That means we've aged 5 years." Miku said, "Masters and Princesses have aged 5 years too, so it's the same." Then Konami said, "But Sai-chan is getting more and more beautiful," to which everyone applauded. But then, behind them, Akane started screaming, her face contorted as she struggled to get to a position where her face was almost touching the ground. I had a bad feeling, as Konami and the staff rushed to her in a panic. It soon turned out that Akane had been sitting on a chair, bent over, and trying to touch either the hi-hat or the cymbal stand next to her, and had gotten her hair caught somewhere, which caused her to get stuck in that position and cause a fuss. Miku and Psyche laughed hysterically and said, "Trouble!" but to Ah-chan, shouted a little quieter. Then, "Don't worry about the back, let's continue the MC," and here the audience laughed. No voices allowed, but I guess that can't be helped. And finally, "Welcome to BAND-MAID's Okyuji." Miku closes and a second section is launched. There are many more small topics, but I'm afraid I'd run out of time if I were to list them all. I'm sorry. Sorry, let me take a break here. I haven't eaten since I woke up. Now, After I finish writing my impressions of all the songs, I will compile as many as their MCs as I can remember and write them up as a small topics collection. I'm eating breakfast right now with yesterday's influencer playing in my head. For those of you who don't like the recent BAND-MAID trend, this song may sound a bit strange on the surface, but after repeated listens, I think even old-school rock fans will really like it, especially after the middle of each verse, because it has that old-fashioned, good-looking rock and roll feel. This is a taste of BAND-MAID that I have never experienced before. I hope you will not be fooled by the speed of this song and just listen to the core of the music. I have the same feelings about T. Shinji's explanation. I just left it out in my impression because my impression is that any BAND-MAID song, especially the singing part, is almost as close to a J-pop melody line as possible. This is because Japanese rock and metal fans and people in the music industry consider Japanese rock and metal music, not only BAND-MAID, to be an extension of J-pop. Of course, I have the same impression. September 8th, 2022. Sorry, I went out for a drink because my body was craving alcohol so much. I will write the rest of the report when I get home, so please wait a little longer. Sorry about that. The second section started. By the way, I'm not going to mention the acoustical problems anymore. I bought this seat knowing that, and I feel ashamed of myself for repeating the same thing over and over again. I will say, however, that the acoustic imbalance did not change until the end of the show. In the previous 3 shows, the 6th song after the MC was always Choose Me. I was expecting Psyche Song to start this day as well, but to my surprise, it was the intro of Manners. As you know, this song is the only one song on the Unseen World's first limited edition 2-CD set that is included on both CDs. That alone tells you what kind of position it holds in BAND-MAID. No matter how much they evolve and change, I believe this song will always serve as a weight on them. And I believe the girls feel this position as well. Needless to say, the performance was excellent. I was ecstatic to watch them play the finest music right in front of me.